Probably should help if I turn my mic on. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Glad you could be here. Whoever's going to drop by. So we'll wait for a little bit for people to drop in. We've got a little bit of stuff to go over in regards to what I'm doing with my drone production. There's a couple of projects you guys are interested in. I'm sure one of them sitting behind me. It's the Cutty Black. You can kind of tell I'm getting places with it. It's getting longer. I'm leaving this top bay open here so that I can do my components and run everything through into the wing. But this is going to be a big model because this back part right here, right there, yeah, that one, is only to right there from the front, right about there. So I got all this to go, plus the top part, which I'm going to leave out because it's kind of I've got it kind of sliced here because I'm going to kind of use this as a canopy so I can kind of get to the electronics, take it on and off, that kind of stuff. But I just kind of want to kick it, see how everyone was doing. You know, like what have y'all been up to in the FPV world? Whoever's flying drones. Because I'm probably going to need your help later on. Because I can tell you, I've been wanting to fly for a while, and you saw the new burgundy red with the translucent PETG pods in the front. I'm waiting for one motor, just one motor. I'm waiting for. It's like, where's my motor? But they take so long to get here. It's not like one of those Amazon Prime things where it's like one day. You know, it's like you order it and these aren't readily available here in the States. I really wish there were more people who did these lower end EDFs at a local hobby store or something. It's like nobody does it around here. It might not be that way where you are. It might be different. But I did manage to find some decent carbon fiber 120 millimeter motors that'll be going in the X-Wing. But I've got to call them and find out if they have clockwise and counterclockwise rotating. The two that I did find, or the set that I found of the 120s, were the JP Hobby. And they're fairly expensive. I only found every once in a while you'll find the set of the 120s where it's clockwise, counterclockwise. I need two sets of those. Those are like $600-700 a set. So I've got one kidney left. We'll see how much I can get for it. But it is what it is. I will have to bump up to probably 150 amp ESCs, which is fine. Still going to stick with D-Shot. Still going to stay with D-Shot 600. Obviously, ELRS. The Cutty is going to have a little bit different of a setup because it is going to have internal fans. Because I think I explained it before. On the top, I'm going to duct some propeller fans here and here. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have two. I think they're Zing from E-Flight. They're pretty big motors, but they're going to be running like 8-inch props, both of them. And that's kind of for my anti-grav, in a sense. Just because I know that the 12S batteries, or 8S or 10S or whatever I decide to go with, depending on the power distribution board I'm going for, is going to weigh. The battery's going to weigh it a little bit. So those are going to be to negate that. And then you'll have your main engines here. The main engine's here, but these are going to be VTOL here. So they'll be pointed down before takeoff. What? That's a guy on a bike. No one's afraid of you. Go on. Chihuahuas. You gotta love them, right? You'd bark at your own fart. Be quiet. All right. So Anyway, I see I have not very much traffic. I don't think, but yeah, that's where we're going with this. So these are gonna VTOL down. These two engines in the back, I'm gonna go with 70s here, and then I'm gonna have 5-inch, I think 5-inch ducted propellers here and here, and then of course you have your 8-inch here on the inside on the bottom, which are gonna. So it's gonna be a total of 6. So balancing that's going to be interesting, but other than that, I think the flight controller will handle it fairly well. So the one thing I've learned from those SpeedyBee F405 wings is that they are extremely versatile. Yes, if you're going to run some high current motors, you do have to use a different power distribution board, but you can still use that flight controller, as I showed you in previous videos, where I jumped it from one power distribution board to the other. I guess the question is like, what would you want to see done first? Are we talking X-Wing or Cutty Black? I'm kind of halfway done. Well, not even halfway, but let's say a quarter of the way done with both of them. The X-Wing will take a little, not as long as the Cutty, because the Cutty is more of a proof of concept where you're not having to. I was gonna go along and fiberglass it after I got it done, and then I got the body perfect, and then use that shell to build the drone. But one of my goals is get it off the printer, assemble it, get the thrust to weight ratio right, and then it works. Instead of having to take the 3D print, then do a shell, and then it kind of takes away from what I'm trying to do here, and that's just 3D print off the shelf components, mix and match, make this stuff work, make it cool, make it fun. That's what I'm going for, and I kind of hope that everyone's kind of seeing what's going on there. There is a lot of data research involved for a larger project, and this isn't even the larger project. Neither is the X-Wing. The X-Wing and this is a scaled up version for testing now of what's going to be 6 motors on this one, as opposed to the 4 that I had before. And I like the EDFs. I know a lot of people that love drones, love open props. They're a lot more fun, to do FPV freestyle, stuff like that, but that's not what I'm doing this for. It could be applied to that in the future if I get a streamlined design of the first one, but I'm thinking about, everyone's like, you're trying to market a product. Well, I'm not marketing a product, at least not in the sense that I'm trying to put a drone out there for people to buy. I'll probably put the STL files out when I'm completely finished, and just, components lists, all that other good stuff. There's a lot of people out there that know drones a million times more than I do, especially programming with iNav or Betaflight. Joshua Bardwell is one of them. He's good. Bacon Ninja, he's good. I watch all those guys because without them, I wouldn't be where I am. And they're not asking me to say that or anything. I'm just, that's what this is about, the YouTube community, right? And we learn from each other. I mean, I don't know how many times I learned to fix certain stuff just watching a YouTube video. So it's good. It's good that we're doing this and kind of sharing the knowledge. I'll get knowledge from here, I'll get knowledge from there, and then I'll run some equations through. What's interesting is Chat GPT has been a really big help by me telling it basically all of the specifications of the drone, and then talking about how I'm having certain issues when I fly. It's acting this way, that way, the other way. And then I'll input that information into Chat GPT, and it knows iNav enough even though it's a few years behind. It knows it enough to know the PID settings, because PIDs are pretty much haven't changed much. And I might be saying that just out of my own ignorance of it. I don't know it, iNav and Betaflight that well. I know it enough to get the drone in the air. But it'll tell me, like, okay, if this is what's happening, then, drop the or raise the proportional, drop the integral, take the derivative, the derivative, the PDI, the D, and of course the feed forward. And it'll tell me to adjust these certain things. So I'll make the adjustments and then I'll try it out. But you got to be careful, because you have to have the AI recall your specs on your drone. Like every time I start a session with it to try and solve a problem, I will ask it to recall my drone specifications, and it will list them all out, and I'll say, okay, according to this is the symptom. What should I look for? And then that's when I started learning about gyro filters and different things like that. And it really helped to kind of open the door to understanding iNav, because there's a lot of tutorial videos out there, but if you've never done iNav, the tutorial on how to do this, that, or the other is going to throw you. So just getting sort of an opinion from chat GPT, I always put the T first, it's very helpful in starting to understand the navigation menus, understanding PID and things like that. And then I'll watch, like I said, Josh Bardwell, Bacon Ninja, that kind of thing. I had a lot of help from Crimson Ghost, FPV, and just a lot of other people kind of chiming in and saying this, that, and the other, and telling me to try this, try that. And it helps. It really does help. And I appreciate it. And in the end, I hope that what I build, especially with what's here, is entertaining. And, and then I'll put out the specs and everything. This particular one, I'm printing on, the Bamboo Labs, the X1 Carbon. So that I wouldn't be able to print this, to be honest with you, within this lifetime if it wasn't for the X1 Carbon. Apologies if my camera's in and out of focus. I got to get a better camera. But yeah, without the X1 Carbon, it would have been almost impossible. And I would switch to, for the bigger models, I switched to a 0.6 millimeter nozzle on the print. These back parts here they're PETG carbon fiber. So they're a lot lighter, and you almost see no print lines on them at all. Not like it's really going to matter, because I'm going to go back over it with some plastic putty for seams and things like that, and then sand the body, primer it, so on and so forth, and give it that Cutlass black look in the final iteration, which includes windows, cockpit lighting, hopefully some consoles. I can get the little LEDs, the little liquid crystal displays, and you can get them in color for just about anything. So it'll be nice to be able to kind of add that accent in there, and then have an onboard camera where the pilot's head is, and then like the rest of the body armor from the game, from Star Citizen. So I kind of want to make it an immersive experience where you've got the video from the ground, but you've got the video also from the cockpit. And when I yaw to the left, right, the head turns, that kind of thing, or the camera turns, makes it look like it's the head. Kind of like in game. So we're just going to be flying around with atmospheric thrusters. I am afraid I haven't finished my quantum drive yet. I will try. Get myself into more trouble sometimes messing with electronics than I want to. But I'm sort of impervious to electrical shock at this point. To be honest, I grew up kind of poor, below the poverty line, and kind of still am, and just doing what I can, get what I can together, buy the motors I can when I can. But when I was younger, I lived my grandma with my grandma, and she sold the house when I was like 9, and then like bought a motorhome. She wanted to travel, which was totally fine with me. Because I ended up going to Kennedy Meadows and a bunch of different places and enjoyed traveling while doing my high schooling and stuff like that. And then the problem though occurred when there was some kind of short in the motorhome's electronics, and this was a big 35-foot Suncrest, motorhomes. It was really nice. And the problem with it was though there was a short, and it was grounding out on the frame somewhere when you would plug into the house power or to 220 to run the motorhome. So every time, and it took me a while to get used to it, every time I would grab the handle, I'd get electrocuted. Wake up on the dirt behind me or whatever, so many times. And because my grandma couldn't really afford to fix it at the time, I didn't know enough about it to fix it. And how am I going to know where a short is in this thing? So I've probably been electrocuted a couple hundred times. And then working on a plug in a house where all the power's off, it was actually in an apartment. All the power's off. I was working on the plug for the air conditioner, and it was somehow tied to the power upstairs. But we'd shut the power off at the main panel in the unit I was working on. And as soon as I grabbed that thing, that was it. Lit me up. And then I got up and went back to where if I got struck by lightning, it would probably just tickle at this point. So yeah, I've had experience with all that. And I developed a phobia to static electricity over it. So if I'm doing laundry and I run out of dryer sheets, I'm like, dang it. Because I know as soon as I start pulling stuff apart, and I'm going to get shocked. And it's like, I don't want to feel that anymore, So that was like a childhood trauma that kind of went forward. So like now every time I shock myself on something or I arc something, I jump, even though I know it's not going to kill me because it's DC, it's low voltage, but still, it's just something that happens, to me. So, realistically, I just want to talk to you guys. Bang Chief, salute, brother. Glad you could be here. Yeah, it's realistically, I want to talk to you guys about what you want to see. We've seen this Reich build. I'm going to fly it a few more times. I got a couple of surprises I'm going to put on it for next time. That last time where I messed up the iNav settings was interesting. Because it was just buck wild. It was just like, I'm not a drone, I'm a tornado, and it just, moving dirt off the field. But eventually, I'm going to end up creating some kind of site where you guys can go, or because I could upload these STL files easy enough. But like for this one back here, if you're deciding to do something that size, because I had to take a model and slice it and then export them as STL files, I'd have to put the specifics down, which part is which, so on and so forth. So it'll take some time. I kind of want to get the thing built up, get the electronics in it, and then get it working, and then I'll get all those specs out and STL files and everything else. And we'll be doing video of the work, and we start doing the detail work and sanding and preparation. And because there's a couple different versions of the Cutlass that from that game. You've got the black, the steel, there's a medical rescue one that's red that looks really cool. But I would really like to stick to maybe the steel. I don't know. Maybe we'll set up a poll and let people kind of who are into Star Citizen kind of say, hey, this is the version we want to see, and then that'll be the color scheme that we go with on this one. So that's what we'll do. Other than that, the X-wing is what it is. There's really no variations I can think of on it that would change its overall look. I'm going through kind of a materials thing where I'm trying to figure out what's the best for what. And since the models got a lot bigger, that's when I switched to 0.6 millimeter. I could go, I have a 0.8 millimeter nozzle, but it's more about what's easier. So I may try the 0.8 for a couple of the parts that go on here just to see if I can drop the wall thickness from 2 loops to 1 and then still have the strength and low enough infill to kind of justify printing it at a specific weight and a specific strength. I'll weigh the model just in the plastic after it's all done, and then we'll start with that spec and go, okay, power distribution, battery, engines, get all that stuff, weigh it all out, and see if we're going to get, see how many grams of thrust we're getting out of each individual engine, individually add it all up, see if the thrust to rate ratio is right, and then start assembling. If there's any adjustments that need to be made along the way, I will do so. And then I'll get a sort of a to-do list, sort of a project package, so that you guys could have the STL files available, parts list, everything I needed to get it done. Just like the Strike drone, I'm going to do that eventually for you guys. And then maybe I'll just... I love, like I said before, I like the concept of EDFs. I like the inducted fan engine. I don't mind props, but I just love the sound of the EDF. I love the sound of the fan. I love the sound that it makes. How quiet it gets when it's just far enough away to where you can barely hear anything at all, and then in an instant, it's just you can hear it, and it's right on. It's right on top of you, and it's just making that awesome jet sound. It's just that's what I'm going for with it. Not to mention, it makes it more realistic, especially with this design. To have the fans. Maybe I'll start a site. Only EDF fans. Make it my own drone company. How's that, right? And that would be a good OnlyFans site, right? EDF fan drones. Nobody's laughing. Bang Chief, you better be laughing. Come on. You guys got ideas though? What else you want to see? We are going to have some flights. Don't worry. Like I said, I am Amazon. I'm still waiting for one motor. Because I did try to... sell pics of my prop. Wait, hold on. This thing is in the way and I can't see. See, look, I can do this. But I can't see past it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Sell pics of the props. Oh, man. Yeah, that's what I could do, right? I mean, it could work. It sounds like a decent business model, right? A drone store, that's only edffans.com. That's perfect. It works. Some spicy angels. That's a good one too. I like that one. Yeah. Oh, another thing too is I've been playing some Star Citizen and I've been playing some Dead by Daylight, some just older games that I've been doing live streams, and I've been kind of putting it out there just for fun, you know. But I haven't been playing Call of Duty lately. I just recently updated it. So if you guys like Call of Duty, I may do a live stream later tonight on that, just to kind of get back into it, because these guys, man, they deck out their weapon systems, and there's so many of them, and so many attachments you can put on them and everything. And I don't know. I find a set that works for me and I stick with it. And you know, there's so many hackers on that game, you know, and it's like, and I don't mind it just because you're not gaining anything by hacking anyway, and you're just hacking. So, you know, it just shows that you have no intention of acquiring any skill, taking the short road, that kind of thing, you know. And that's saying, hey, you do you. But if you're gonna hack. But you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get banned. You're gonna get hardware banned, and then eventually you're gonna have to buy more computers. And it's just, these people, some people don't even care. They get hacked, like Nadia, for instance. But I personally think that Activision was banking on Nadia because she was intentionally cheating. Everybody knew it. And then what they would do is officially question whether she was or not. I mean, give me a break. I played the game long enough to know what an aimbot looks like. So, and I didn't even know about those pedal things though, like those yellow pedals that she had. I guess she had under her desk. I had no idea what those were, and somebody had to explain to me why the picture was so infamous of her with that. Anyway, I'm not trying to slam on her personally. Her gameplay, yes, not her personally. Although it does take a certain type of individual to bank off of a lie. We've elected most of them. So there's that. But back to what I was talking about before. I imagine the strike will be up and running in about a week, probably less, depending on when the motor gets here. And then we'll do some video, but I'm going to add some cool stuff. I want to do some dusk flights, and I'm going to put some LED lights on the drone, but inside the bottom of the engine themselves, and then maybe along the bottom of the actual body, and something to light up the inside of the transparent top that I'm going to have on there. So, not to mention marker lights, so I can see what I'm doing. But I think that'll look pretty cool. I like doing it not with the onboard LED configurations from that SpeedEV offers, because I don't know how deep that goes, and I haven't been down that rabbit hole yet. You know, so all I do is just steal the 12 volts for the Arduino from the power distribution board and do my own lighting, and program it in Arduino, and then have it do what I want it to do. Because I really don't want to be limited by the flight controller's LED configuration, because that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's probably fairly limited. With Arduino and using NeoPixel stuff, I can get some decent effects out of the lighting. So that should be fun to watch. And we'll see how it looks at dusk, and just go out at the perfect time of night so that I know what I'll do. I just thought about it because it being the time of year it is, and the mosquitoes and stuff like that are out. It's just making it to where it's all the LEDs are UV blue, like the dark UV light, and then underneath the bottom of the drone, just put like one of those like electric rackets for flies. Turn it on, just fly around the town and take care of the mosquito problem for everybody. That'd be kind of fun. No, I could charge for that, right? Mosquitoes in your backyard? Don't worry. That would be funny, because I'd be flying around and all you hear is that'd be just awesome. I use it to move them to my neighbors. I'm like kicking it outside, having a cigar, having a drink or something. Neighbors are like, "What's going on? They're all over us." And there's this blue UV drone just sitting above them. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. I might use that one. Good one, Bank Chief. Anyway, apparently, I'm told I looked good on camera. She's biased. She married me. Yeah. So is it? What do you guys have a sci-fi craft you want to see turned into an EDF drone? Besides what I'm already doing. Road Warrior beard. Yeah. Yeah, that's it right there. You know what? I was looking for the Millennium Falcon. I thought about that one because that one I think would be fairly easy to do. But I have to make it as realistic as possible. So what I don't want to do is have 4 huge turbine holes underneath its bottom. So I'm going to figure that one out. But I'm still working on anti-gravity, electromagnetic fields and such. I keep opening portals, and then politicians come out, and I have to send them back. They're like, "We don't want to go back. There's no water down here." Anyway, but the point is, yeah, I definitely want to do a Millennium Falcon. But in the end, what I want to do is I want to keep moving forward with the designs and keep moving forward with the concepts, not to mention the aesthetics of having specific types of aircraft that people do love from the movies and shows and whatnot turned into drones. And then the more all working models and they're all done and I'm moving on to the next project, just say, you know what? I got this model, this radio, it's all ready to go. It flies perfect. Show a bunch of videos on how it operates, what you got to do, and then have a giveaway where you get everything I built, including the controller. And then, if something, well, what I wanted to do is like, if I did offer a drone, not so much the STL file, but like a printing service in a sense. I mean, there's tons of printing services out there, but I would have like an army of X1 carbons and then have you guys like, it's like I thought about taking this set, the strike drone set, like I said, streamlining it a little bit, and then just kind of selling it with the motors that I have been using, just buying them in bulk from China, because apparently that's where they come from. What doesn't? And yeah, kits, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, basically, if you know flight controllers and you know ESCs, I would send out in different stages too. Like, okay, so you can have just the body, or you can have just the body and the motors and the power distribution board, or motors, power distribution board, ESCs, and then you add your own flight controller and RX or whatever. And then just say, hey, look, if you're flying around, you bang into something, I can always, you get a warranty for the printed parts. You bang into, I mean, obviously, if you did what I did on purpose, I might charge you a little bit more. Warranty the parts. You bust the bottom off on a cell. You know how it works. You just pop off the nacelle, CA glue on a new one, and then just the motor just clicks right in. So I could do that, and then offer the STL files, obviously, for those who want to print this at home and try it themselves, which I'm totally fine with. I don't want to be like some of those other websites that I've seen out there, and I won't name any because I don't want to bash any company. Everyone's trying to make money. So, but I would give the STL files out and just say, look, there's a bunch of videos I've done that explain what components I got, how I did it. You may have different components in mind, but just keep in mind that you're not going to push the current that's required from this setup out of a SpeedyBee F405 wing. It's a good flight controller for what it is, but it isn't designed to push that current out of the power distribution. I mean, well, I guess it could, because that's just a PDB that powers the ESC. But still, with this system, at this kV rating on the motor, I'm pulling, I think it was 234 amps constant current if I was at full throttle, which is why I was able to fly for as long as I did. So, sorry, I have a building I have to take care of and secure, so I get texts and stuff about it. Wow, I lost my train of thought. ADHD, here we come. I know it's not Alzheimer's. I remember I forgot something. And I'm not that old. So actually, I don't think that's an old thing. We're not even going to get into that because that's just, I'm not going to mess with people with that problem, That's a horrible thing to see. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And my prayers are with them. But moving on. Bang Chief, you seem to be on this. Where was I? Was it kids? Was I talking about kids? Like making a site? EDF fans only on the drone, onlyfans.drone. I think that's what we should do. Power. Yeah, I'm still lost. Power distribution, yes. I see what you're talking about. Okay, so I have another. I don't know if anyone's heard of Taro drone, and I was kind of shocked when I went on the site to find a controller for that, because I've seen these hexacopters, and I've seen a different configurations from Taro, and so I got one of their power distribution boards, but it was only 460 amps, I think, on the max output, which is fine, because it's still under my limit until I get up into the 120 millimeter range. But there obviously has to be a power distribution board for that, because you've got stuff like the DJI Matrice, which is taking a lot of power to move. You got those Field Ag kind of DJI quads that are running 8 motors. So plus they're carrying however many gallons of liquid. So there's definitely got to be power distribution boards out there. But what I noticed is there are, like, when I found some flight controllers that were outside of the realm of SpeedyBee and things like that, and MyTech or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the names of all the controllers out there. I found that in the United States, it was restricted. You couldn't buy the DJI flight controller. Like, what for? I have one of your drones. I mean, don't make me rip the thing apart and use the controller out of it, because I will. So I don't like it when they say it's like, oh, this is restricted in your area. They do that a lot on Amazon too. They'll be like, you can buy this, but it's restricted in your area. And I'm like, I don't see the reason why you would restrict like a Teflon pan in my area. That's just kind of weird to me. Anybody else encountered that where they go out and buy something and they're like, oh, well, this isn't available. We can't ship this to where your location is. Anybody? Out of all two of you? Because I mean, to me, it's just it's like a marketing monopoly or something. It's like DJI wants to be able to sell complete units at a really high price here in the United States, but you can't buy the individual flight controller. That makes no sense. That's called extortion in a sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like DJI's products. I would just like it if I could buy more of them without them saying, sorry, we can't ship them to your country. I'm like, well, you got all your drones in our country. Why can't I have a flight controller? Anyway, it is what it is. I'll just make my own. And then I thought about it at one point, and I thought, I don't know if an Arduino could do it, but it probably could. I've seen Arduino drones out there where people are making flight controllers out of Arduinos, and they're using some of the standard Arduino sensors that come with it, like the ultrasonics for collision avoidance and things like that. And they do plan on incorporating that kind of stuff in some of the larger drones, because the last thing I want to do is hit something. So, and I'm also going to employ emergency shoots on these drones. So there will be a backup power system specifically for the shoots. And if something were to happen and I lose power to the drone, or I have to hit a kill switch or something like that, to pop the shoots and stuff, and everyone's like, well, what if it's too low? I thought, well, that's a good question. If it's too low, just have a few do what Blue Origin did. Now they use chutes to land their capsule, but they also have soft touchdown thrusters. So if you put a couple of, reloadable black powder soft touchdown thrusters, if it's too low to employ chutes, then you can use the soft touchdown thrusters. Of course, you don't want to cause a fire, so you want them to be short-lived. So it would be so far from the ground and then done. So you want to time them just right. But that could be another form of, emergency landing, if you want to call it that. It's playing hard to get, Becky. Yeah, it's I don't get it. They should just allow me to buy the flight controllers. And maybe it's just the site I went to, but I went to more than one, and it was the same story. It's like, yeah, you can buy our drones from our site, but you cannot have this particular controller or that controller or that. I don't understand it. How are you going to sell the power supply for a drone when the manufacturer for that power supply is recommending your flight controller that I can't buy in this country? So why would I buy the power supply? Well, I bought it because I have a different use for it. So I just think that's kind of weird, and not very fair to those of us who want to be kind of DIYers and kind of figure things out on your own, learn as you go, kind of thing. Because it kind of limits us, and that's the problem. The biggest problem I've had with EDFs. There's not enough EDF manufacturers that don't come out of Hong Kong that aren't. I don't know if there's any local EDF manufacturers. There's a few, but they get up there in price. Like one engine's $560, and you still got to buy the ESC for it, and the the flight controller and whatnot you're going to be using. But what I've learned is that as long as you have a power management system in hand, that can handle the current. You can put just about any flight controller on the drone and it'll be fine. From the SpeeDB F405, which was just the regular one that wasn't a wing, it was just the F405, and then the F405 wing, which I chose specifically because I wanted the VTOL ability. So, I can control servos with it. The other one was just mainly a quad stack, small stack all in one. It's a good one, but I learned early on that those capacitors couldn't handle what I was throwing at it. So every time I'd spool up, that capacitor get real hot and then just pop. And that's why I had to switch. I had to switch to a different power distribution board that had ESCs that had independent capacitors to separate the current out and to limit how much I'm taxing each individual ESC. Really just so I didn't have to replace expensive hardware. Before I was analog. I did this originally old school RC analog, just radio, S-bus, they call it S-bus receiver, serial receiver. And no stabilization, nothing. Just running pure thrust off the throttle and using servos to move the nacelles. That proved to be almost impossible to fly, considering the narrow stream that you get out of the EDF's thrust. So that wasn't going to work. I tried even putting just a 2-axis gyro stabilization system on it, and it wasn't enough. At the time, I had a 3-engine design in a Y configuration with a pusher motor under the bottom. And that pitch and roll would work by the movement of the nacelles from the front and the back. The only problem was that I had 2 engines spinning. One was countering the other one for the yaw, but the front engine was not, it had no counter for yaw. I'd have to actually use a fin to kind of adjust the yaw for that motor, until the pusher motor that was mounted underneath was engaged. And then I had the other problem of, well, now I've got 2 throttles I have to worry about. So how do I do that? Well, the best way to do it was, use a controller that had a potentiometer on it. And then that potentiometer would control the actual lift, the pitch, not the pitch, sorry. The actual height, the elevation that the drone would go to, depending on where you had the potentiometer for height. And then the main thrust would be, or the pusher would be on the main throttle. And then you could still bank and pitch normally by using the angle of the front and then, of course, the 2 backs. And it was sort of like a Y configuration, flying at the bottom point of the Y facing forward. So it's a good idea, but I need to get a controller that has I've seen them before. They have a wheel on the side of the controller for, potentiometer based control. And that would put it next to my aileron and elevator control, which would be perfect, because then I could raise the drone up, forward on the throttle on the pusher, and then still have bank, yaw, pitch, and my elevation could be on that knob. So, and then of course that wouldn't be controlled by the drone itself. It would basically be, well, I guess it would be controlled by the drone's controller for stabilization, as far as that's concerned. Last thing I want to do is try and do it manually or analog like I did last time, because it didn't work. It almost worked, and probably would have worked had I anticipated the power to weight ratio at the time. I was going from, like I said before, I was going from the finish line on, and I hadn't even started. So I was like, cool, I got a design, build it, it'll work. No, it didn't work. It did. It almost did. I had to support it to keep it stable, but it would still become weightless. That, and you'll probably see that one in there. There's a couple of videos where you'll see either blue or black nacelles, and it's just in a Y configuration. Now, I haven't yet incorporated a flight controller like I've been using on the Shrike on that configuration, which is maybe something I do next, because that was one of the main goals of doing this initially. And then when I had to step backwards and go, okay, I've got to go back and understand EDFs and how the flight controller communicates with them and how they respond, do some more experimentation with that, then I'd be able to move forward with my design and then make it work. So while I'm working, and I know I've got more than one project, but that's kind of the point, because in my situation, I have to take the resources I have and put them towards what I'm working on, kind of spread it out so I can keep bringing you guys content, and you guys can share it, and I can get more subscribers and so on and so forth. So I've kind of spread my resources across a couple of different projects so that I can kind of keep you guys up to date. As a matter of fact, these two back panels here are a major. Actually, there's 3 pieces that are an update. I have another 2 pieces that I'm going to print back here. So I'm trying to get the whole bottom part of the body done, so I can start mapping out my engine layout. And then, of course, doing CG testing with some mock-up weights and things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then what I'm going to end up doing is going back to that first design that I made, because I still have the files, obviously. I designed everything in Fusion. I don't know if there's an easier program, but and I still need to do a bunch of Fusion 360 tutorials anyway, because forming an aerodynamic body in the solid body section is almost impossible. But building a aerodynamic structure in the meshing area, where you're doing you're working on the mesh tab in 360, is something I still have to work with, and that involves 3D sketches and then lofting, things like that, and then stitching them together, which I understand. I'm just not familiar with all the commands yet. So everything I've ever done on Fusion has been through solid body tab. Never touched anything else. Never meshed anything. Never went into the mesh tab to do anything. So it ended up being a pursuit of understand the EDFs, then go back and start working with your design. Take that design, what you've learned from the test platform, and then apply it to something more aesthetic, something more agile. Because like I said before, I overprinted the drone on purpose. The best radio, I would say, would be, and this is just because I'm just kind of getting into ELRS. If you're looking for a radio just for normal plane flight, I personally like Spectrum. You can get a 6-channel Spectrum radio that doesn't have a bunch of bells and whistles for fairly cheap. I mean, I've even got a FlySky radio that's really good if you're just doing that. But if you're going to ELRS, which is really long range as far as that goes, like 2.4 gigahertz and above is what we're working with. And I would say a Radio Master one, because like my Commando 8, it's like a game controller pad, but the Radio Master has a bigger screen on it, and it also has a lot more switches and knobs to work with, and I think that rolling knob, so I have to look and find out. But Radio Master is what I'm going to stick with, because I tried a couple different ones like the Commando 8. Not a bad radio, just really bad button design. And that's kind of something you don't want, especially if you're putting mixture transitions on, if you're putting mode transitions on your radio. The last thing you want to know, your switches are stiff, they're going to work, they're not going to get in your way, you can get to them readily. And the Commando 8's great if you're just kind of zipping around and you don't really plan on using the switches a lot. It works out great. But I mean, if you're looking for a little bit more to work with, I would go with the Radio Master. I don't know what model it is. It looks like a game controller with a screen on it. That's whatever model that is. That's the one I'm talking about. But it's all about budget, right? So my Commando 8 was only $139, and that was for 2.4 gigahertz ELRS. So that wasn't bad. Now, I don't know how much the Radio Masters one, is in comparison to that one. I'd have to do the research, but it also depends on where you get it too. Prices may vary. So, but yeah, I would definitely stick with Radio Master. I really like. I haven't had any issues with signal loss at all with the Radio Master receiver, especially the EP3 V2. And that's the one I'm using. Let me say that slower. EP3 V2 Radio Master receiver. That one works really well. And then all you have to really do is you gotta get the ELRS configurator. You download it. You find your receiver, and you flash it with your passphrase on your radio, and then your radio gets the same thing. You create a Lewis script that you then load into the radio, which is either done by SD card. You can take it out and put the Lewis script on there, or you can, I think with the Radio Master, you can plug it in. But on the Commando, I had to remove the SD card and put the Lewis script on there. And that'll have the same passphrase as the passphrase that's recorded in your receiver. So that's how they'll pair. So I didn't have to bind anything. Once I had those two loaded into the systems and I booted up the radio and then booted up the drone, they automatically found each other. So it was pretty much effortless. Because I remember binding back in the day when you're like holding the button on the serial receiver and you're like, okay, turn it on and hit the bind and find, okay, it's in bind mode. Okay, there you go. I didn't have to do any of that with the LRS. And again, it's much longer range. Sometimes you'll get the radio screaming at you that it lost telemetry, but that has nothing to do with control. It's just the telemetry data that it temporarily lost connection with. It usually recovers it fairly quickly, even with the Commando 8. But I mean, if I'm going to trust my future drones with anything, it's definitely going to be that Radio Master receiver. Has not failed me yet. And it's still working now, even though I beat the living crap out of it at the field. You guys saw me. I was just like, you know what? The heck with it. I don't know what I did in INAV. Let's see how durable this thing is. And I just tore it up. And that receiver works just fine. Yeah. The long range flying. Yeah, definitely. You're talking wing though, right? You're not talking drone. Is that what you're talking about? You want to do a winged kind of like UAV kind of thing where you're watching through the goggles, or you want to do both? Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Because one radio would help you. You have several models on one radio, so you get one radio. All you're doing is buying RXs, and I think that transmitter was only like $20-something. I mean, not the transmitter, sorry. The receiver, the Radio Master, was only $20-something, maybe 30. That's not very much, for a decent receiver like that. So, I mean, I would recommend that one all day long. And I mean, I would also recommend, especially if you're beginning and you're not really worried about a bunch of switches, the Commando 8 V2. No one's paying me to say this. I'm just saying it because of my own experience. The only gripe I have is the buttons on that Commando 8. And one of them that doesn't want to click down and stay down when it's supposed to. It's acting more like a momentary switch. So it's like, that doesn't do me any good, especially if I'm engaging, if I've got it set on a navigation course on that button. And then I've got to worry about when I go over to, because I have my return to home on one of the three, and I don't really like the 3 position switches on those. They're too close because it's a switch. It's like a button switch rather than a big metal switch. So you can easily accidentally go past a mode into a mode you weren't anticipating. And before and when you're flying, there's not a lot of time to recover if you do something wrong. Really depends on your altitude, I guess. That's when Newton takes over the driver's seat. Yeah, I got a beef with Newton. I'm going to tell you right now. He's responsible for algebra. He's the one who decided, let's explain variables using the alphabet, because numbers aren't enough. Kind of wish it was a bowling ball that fell out of the tree instead of an apple. But we are where we are. So, yeah, definitely Radio Master. Love the receivers. I like the Commando 8. And the Speedy Bee stuff has been absolutely amazing for me. Speedy Bee's flight controllers are absolutely awesome. I mean, I have abused the heck out of them. My first one, I cracked the top board in half, lost all the pins. It was barely attached to the top at all, except for the front. That was it. And at that point, I didn't even know if I needed the top board, but I connected what I could, and it still flew. It still flew just fine. It was just, I didn't have my, I found out that I didn't have my Bluetooth or my Wi-Fi available on, because that was the pins I ripped off. So, but I mean, that was even before I put a top on the drone. Oh yeah, head tracker. You see, I have, now I can't use this with anything else except my Mavic, but I have this one. It's the racing goggles. I can't use it with anything except the Mavic, even if I get a DJI VTX for a racing drone. Still can't pair it with this. I don't know why, but it works only with the Mavic. But even in the description, it's the racing goggles. They're not racing goggles. It's just head track and FPV. Everything is touch sensitive here as far as the controls go. So swiping forward, swiping up, 2 swipes, that kind of thing. There's a few buttons, but it's all just through touch. I can fly the drone just with these. I don't even need the controller. So that's good, but what doesn't make sense to me is why wouldn't I be able to use this with a DJI VTX and a cam? I got you, Bang Chief. Go do what you got to do, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Might not be here when you get back because I'll be done pretty soon, but good to have you. Yeah, they're decent goggles. They work. I don't have any complaints about them, but I can only use them with my Mavic. I believe I can use them with other drones, like other Mavics or an Inspire, perhaps. But as far as I know, all right, salute, man, salute. Sorry, I run security, like I said, so I have to listen. I can't switch to my cameras because I'm talking to you guys, which is more fun. So, I'm gonna have to get another set of goggles if I'm gonna have, because I would love to put, like I said, I want to put a camera on the Shrike, but I don't want to just do it for onboard video. I'd love to get a 3D cam so you can see the drone and the flights from on board, and they're stable. But at the same time, I'd also like to have a front-facing camera, so I can have my OSD, my on-screen display, and I can get my data, my voltage, my heading, all the other stuff, and fly it with goggles. so I can go farther out, because I get afraid to go too far out in the field that I usually fly in, because I don't want to get too close to the trees or power lines or anything like that. So I end up staying fairly close to home. And that also comes from a depth perception issue that I have, because I'm monovision. In the military, I shot rifle left-handed, pistol right-handed, because I'm left-eye dominant, but I'm right-handed. So it's like, so I could use both in combat, which was helpful, but it doesn't help when you're flying something. So, and who doesn't remember Fort Benning? Of those who went, I'll tell you, those were the days. I was the guy, the drill sergeants. They knew I'd be the guy when it came down to grenades, who would throw it and then look, because I wanted to see what happened. And he's like, "Get down, private." I'm like, "Holy crap, man. I just wanted to see what happened." It's like, you just threw a grenade. You want to watch it go off? Yeah, of course they do. But in hindsight, it was probably better that I got behind the concrete barrier. But yeah, it's just me, man. So I'm going to do some more research on these goggles specifically and see if there's anything else I can do to use a VTX without having to cannibalize another drone to do it. That because it doesn't make sense to me that this would only work with a Mavic. It doesn't. I mean, come on. They sold me a smart controller, with a screen on it where I can use multiple drones. So why couldn't I use multiple cameras? Don't seem fair to charge that much for something like that and then say you can't use our other VTX products. I mean, it's got a GPS in, it's got the antenna for it and everything. GPS, sorry. So I don't see the problem with it. What's the fuss? Is there a firmware issue that won't let it work? Because I think that since you guys wrote all the software, you should probably be able to fix that, right? So that you can use the goggles you want to use. And they advertise these as the racing goggles. But you can't race anything with it because you can't put a racing drone on it. All you can use is the Mavic or the what is it, the Avata, or I don't even think you can use the FPV drone where they have the new goggles for it. It's like, why? Can I trade these in? Come on, DJI, hook me up. Hook me up, I'll say good things about you. And I was talking about extortion earlier, right? I'm just playing around. Now, they work well, and they do great for head tracking. Not to mention, you can fly the drone with those goggles hands-free. But they weigh a ton. I mean, they're not light on the face. And you can kind of tell why. The battery's back here, thank God. But I think it does have a cooling fan in it. But this is big. This is huge. It's hard to keep on your head. You can wrench it down. There's a wheel here to kind of open it up and put it on. But you're sitting here, you put it on your head, and you're just like, just so you can kind of do that without ripping it off your head, and then put them back down again. So, yeah, they're good goggles, but limited. Just because they're telling me I can't use other VTX systems with it. Which, I mean, it's a transmitter. This is a receiver. It can't be that hard. Give us some firmware, guys. Give us something to make these work. I mean, I know you're trying to make money by selling more stuff, but at least be nice to the consumers that already have. Give us some firmware so we can use our stuff with your other VTX items. I mean, because we're going to buy your VTX. I'm not talking about using aftermarket VTX that's not DJI, because honestly, I'm happy with the Hasselblad camera on the drone that I have on the Mavic. And I wouldn't change the camera or the VTX. I kind of like the way they have it. Not to mention it would be really streamlined because it would be their product. But give us something. Give us a VTX we can use with those racing goggles. And if somebody out there is shaking their head because they already know that there is one and I haven't found it yet, please feel free to send me a link to one. Well, my drone enthusiasts, my buddies, my friends, to close out, we're going to talk really quickly about the schedule. Shrike motor, Cutty, X-Wing. All working on them at the same time. That's my schedule. Jump from one to the other. That's how ADHD works. You get a lot of work done, but you're doing it all at once. Then you forget stuff. And then you and then you take off realizing that you forgot something. And then by then it's too late and you just have to make it look spectacular when it happens. Whatever happens. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I hope it was entertaining and somewhat informative. I hope it kind of gives you an insight of what I'm doing and gives you an idea of where we're going with this next. So I can't wait personally to get the Cutty in the air, and I cannot wait to get the X-Wing in the air because 4x120 millimeter. I already did the measurements on that. Okay, we already did the thrust to weight ratios, even with 12S packs. We're pushing 80 pounds of thrust on that thing. That's the specs. We're pushing 80 pounds of thrust, max throttle, on a drone that's probably going to weigh less than 10, 15 tops. So that thing's going to book it. I'm actually worried about the mock-up guns on the outside because I printed them thin-walled. I'm thinking they're just going to spaghetti out and get ripped off. But that'd be funny. So stay tuned for that. When I get those, that's gonna be. I don't have very many organs left to sell, but I'm gonna get those, and I'm gonna and 4x120s. Okay, 80 pounds of thrust. X-Wing star. X-Wing, is it the X-Wing Starfighter? Yeah, X-Wing Starfighter it's Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. All right, we're going with that. I'll even put a little R2-D2 at top, screaming for his life. Okay? I will put all the detail into it you guys want. Because I know there's a lot of Star Wars fans out there that's going to be like, they had this thing on this, and I'm going to be like, okay, fine. I'll print one and put it on there. And so I'm going to be counting on you Star Wars fans to help me make sure I get all the details on this thing. Okay? I know there's pictures out there, but it's got other opinions. And I'm going to trust the people who actually go to like conventions for Star Wars. I want to trust you guys when it comes to the details on this thing. But that 4x120, that's going to be a rocket ship, baby. And I'll be lucky if it doesn't rip the wings off. Either way, it's going to be fun. It's either going to be a spectacular flight or a ball of fire. Either way, you're going to love it, and I'm going to love it. Not the money being lost, but the point is it'll be fun. So thank you again all for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate all of my subscribers and the support. I even appreciate the criticisms because it makes me look at myself and what I can do better. So if you think I'm doing something wrong, tell me. If you think I can do it better, tell me. That's what it's all about. Us working together, having fun doing it. Until next time, y'all have a good week. See you soon.